Well, good morning. It's Tuesday again. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, host of the Today Show. On Tuesday, of course, my co-host, Dr. Ramin Modiri, Money Matters, and little tidbits of other things. Good morning, Ramin. How are you?
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here. It's good to.
Well, these Tuesdays just roll around, man.
They do. That's what I'm just gonna say. You stole from the tip of my tongue. So here you go. Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing that we got ourselves out of Saskatchewan when we did. We were in Saskatchewan, for those viewers that don't know, for a week. And now they're blanketed in snow and more snow and people getting their shovels out. So, yeah, we're going to get snow here tomorrow. But yeah. So how are things in California? A little cooler there, I see.
Yeah, it's a little cooler, but I'm embarrassed to say, it's like 60s here. But at night it does get cold, and I like it. It's good to have that change of, the weather. You go outside and you're walking. It's nice to have a sweater on for a change, so it's good.
But if you see anybody down there walking around in shorts and flip-flops, you know they're Canadian.
Yes.
Right? Even in the 60s, we're going, yay!
Exactly.
Yes. So today I'm excited about today because we're going to talk about some little tips on how to get out of debt. And I think that is so prevalent for people right now, especially post-COVID, when people are recovering financially and had to live off their credit cards maybe for a week or two or a month or 6 months, and being able to maintain our lifestyle. So that'll be important. And also a little bit of post-election talk or outside opinion talk. And Ramin and I decided we're ramping up the show a little bit. It's not all going to be about, finance, because finance impacts everything, all aspects of our life.
Right.
The quality of food we can buy, where we can go, what we can afford. It's just always in front of us. So I'm interested and excited to hear what it is you have to share with us today, Ramin. Over to you.
All right. Awesome. Yes. So it should be a fun show. But before we talk about that, I just have a good feel story I want to share with you.
Okay.
As you know, I love soccer. I mean, just the sports as a whole, because I think it's a story of life when you think about sports. So the story goes, San Marino is the fifth smallest country in the world. It's a country inside Italy. So Italy has two countries out of three countries in the world, which are inside other countries. Italy has two of them, Vatican and San Marino, which is on the Adriatic Sea. The other one is Lesotho in South Africa. So San Marino has 35,000 people. And they got into soccer in 1987, which is over 37 years ago. And they are ranked 211 out of 211. They're the worst soccer country in the world. Since 1987, till September of 2024, which is 2 months ago, they had only won one game and they had 9 ties in 37 years. So they never win. One win, they had like 1-0 in 2004. Well, fast forward to 2024, September, they won their second game. And then they had a tie. And yesterday, they won 3-1. They have never scored 3 goals in their 37 years.
Oh, my God.
And they finished on top of their group, and they're promoted. This is the European Nations League, they call. They are going to the next level. The worst country in soccer has won 2 games and 1 draw in last 2 months. And it's an amazing story. So for our audience, 35,000 people. I mean, the smallest cities in the United States or Canada, you go, look, that's a city. And imagine they're playing against other national teams. So basically in Europe as well. So basically, that's such a good feel. And sometimes I think we get discouraged. We think you're too old or too young or too old to have romance or too old to get into this career. Listen, things can happen. Just be patient. And here they're just besides themselves. They might get scored on 10 goals next game, but this is amazing. So I just thought to share that with you. Brings a lot of hope for a lot of people, I think. So anyway, so that's one little tidbit. Speaking of post-election, now we are really winding down, but our good friend of the show, Kathy, we had a meeting last night, and she came up with this wonderful observation about how the kindness of people in different environments can affect us and how we can affect each other by being grateful, but also observing that. And as our good friend Lisa mentioned, it's about being seen and heard. People, a lot of times, they get unnoticed. So Kathy mentioned she went to this restaurant, a nice restaurant, and the hostess or the server was from Iran, so from overseas, and she was so nice. And she said they're just great people, people who work there. And she started talking to them and asking about post-election. And I guess this server had mentioned that she's happy that Trump has gotten elected. And I think you would get a very mixed reaction to that. Some people, people who don't like Trump, they just have strong reaction. People who like him, they have strong reaction. There's nothing in between. Love or hate in a different way. But so I don't want to make it political. All I want to say, and that would be a nice show to talk about the effects internationally. I just want to make an observation coming from someone from the Middle East, from developing countries, from emerging countries. And I want to share that a lot of our audience coming from United States, from Canada, from Australia, these are new countries. These are countries based on freedom. That's why they are the best countries in the world. That's why a lot of immigrants like myself, we feel, and a lot of people in Canada who immigrated, they feel this is the greatest country with the greatest opportunities. There was a polling done right after the election. They were asked the Latinos what they thought about United States, and 75% of them, they thought United States the greatest country in the world. These are the Latinos immigrants. Are the blacks, they said 61%. And what did our white friends from progressive side? They thought it's 31%. So the idea is, unless you live somewhere which you have not had freedom, you have had oppression, you won't know the value of what we got. And we talked about being grateful. And if you notice countries like Canada and United States and Australia, they have two things in common. They are new countries with new immigrants. Unfortunately, there's the land side of things with our indigenous friends. So I put that aside. That will be another subject we talk about. But a lot of people who came here, they were freedom oriented, but it was religious or it was political. So they have that, again, the passion for freedom when they moved here. Um, we cannot look at life as a prism of democracy. And the reason I opened this, and as I mentioned, we can use this as a maybe another show with some of our friends can join us. The countries that they've had a long history, there has been always this powerful figure in control to unite the people. So that's why a lot of times in these, especially old empires and again, developing countries, I just use the Middle East, you see a lot of dictatorships because there had been a heavy hand to guide these people. And there's been this control. And unfortunately, a lot of, again, population has gotten used to this. There's that herd mentality. That's why you see from Iraq to Libya, you even go to Cambodia, even China. I mean, there is this heavy hand, and unfortunately, the complete cruelty and other things. But
Mhm.
when you get rid of the leadership, when you have the democracy, they have a very difficult time because for thousands of years they have not been trained or educated on this. And it will take generations to come to that conclusion. So, the bottom line, the reason I mentioned this, and the same thing in Russia, Eastern Europe, what happens is Africa is a bigger, it's a very important. What happens in these countries, they actually respect power or powerful figures. And it's all about perception. So I can be, and we mentioned a few weeks ago, we talking about the role of males and females, how the definition. As a male, it's wonderful that you want to be compassionate, which is very important. Loving father, loving husband, loving son, those are absolute needed. But also there has to be that strength because again, the protection, it's just in nature. I mean, a father is supposed to protect the family. So that strength of reliability on that father figure or husband figure or brother figure, it's expected. So when we mishmash the roles, the son becomes a mother. I mean, yeah, that could also be the father becomes a mom, becomes a friend, becomes a sister and brother. Everything is mishmash. Then you don't have that clarity. So going back to what I said, when there is, whether you like it or not, the figure of strength shows up, people take note. It's the anticipation. So you don't have to go to war anywhere. Just knowing that what if, and I witnessed that. I grew up during, I went to school during Reagan years. Now, whether you agree with Reagan or not, when you looked at the, like the Soviet bloc or, the socialists, you know, maybe whether he was war hog or whatever it was, they respected what he said. And look what happened. So I think the perception is as strong of action sometimes. It's just that anticipation. And I know in the Middle East, at least there, they 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 make notes. They pay attention to that.
Mhm.
Because they say, well, this guy is a nonsense guy. And that's why another thing you've said it many times, and I think that's very, very important. As part of your workshops, is you've noticed that bullies don't go after confident people because there's that aura. They go after what? The weaker people. So when there's a weaker leadership or other things, well, you know what? They take advantage of that. These rogue governments around the world, they say, oh, you know what? We can do that because they all want to negotiate. Well, it's
Mhm.
nice when there's two-part negotiation is with two parties, not one. But
Right.
when one party is insisting on negotiation, one party is really doesn't care, doesn't respect you, things change. I just want to open. Um, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just coming from my
Mhm.
background, what I have noticed, talking to my fellow countrymen, what I've noticed in Middle East. All these wars have gone down. Everything has shut down when there is a strong figure saying that, you know what, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. So and it's
Yeah.
not about parenting or other thing. It's not like a
No, no.
physical abuse. It's just having that string, and it's creating respect. Children do that. That's unfortunately one of the problems, especially in California. Parents are buying the love rather than
Oh,
kids need direction. They're
training.
children. They need
Yeah.
they need to know. Okay, my dad and my mom, they gave us the whole discipline in a way that this is the way it should be, but it cannot be today. We become flexible. Okay, well, did you lie, did you cheat, did you do this? Well, you're gonna have consequences, but never consequences never arrive. So of course that's how we take advantage of things. So that's why it's talk about again the discipline, but the clarity and the strength. The strength doesn't have to be abusive or physical or God forbid, abusive emotionally. It just has to be clear. This is the way it is, and it happens in relationships. So Anyway,
Absolutely.
I just had to get it out of because I thought,
Yeah, out of your system. Well, I've got a couple of things that came up for me while you were talking. I'll
sure.
share just briefly. I saw a post, and Keanu Reeves was wearing a T-shirt, and we all know who Keanu Reeves is, John Wick, and other roles he's played. I love this guy. He's so philanthropic. He shares a lot of his money with the poor. Anyway, on the T-shirt was, and this will be great for one of our Indigenous shows, but was a group of Indigenous people from the past, ancestors, in their regalia. By the way, you don't call their outfits costumes. That's their regalia.
Right.
And it says, if you don't look like these guys, you're probably an immigrant.
Yep.
I love that. I went, yeah, if you don't look like these guys, you're an immigrant. And now I saw another post and it said, Christopher Columbus did not discover anything in his whole life. And you were talking about words. We talked about words last night, and my word for the year was connections. And but I have something to share around that. There was this block of letters. It's a game, and it might say pick the first four colors that you actually see. So it might be blue, red, yellow. But this was words for 2025, and you were to look at it and let the brain do its thing and come up with 4 words for 2025. So, would you like to see my 4 words?
Okay.
You're going to love this because of our conversations. Here's my 4 words: connections, love, money, and power.
Wow.
My mantra for 2025.
You can't go wrong with that.
Well, no, that's why everything's lined up, right? So, yeah. And, another thing about leadership, if people cannot trust that you're going to take them somewhere special, many leaders have led people down garden paths, right straight into the ditch. And we talked a little bit about, as much as people may not like to think this, Hitler was in fact a fantastic leader and was able to mobilize people. Look what he did.
Yeah.
And that's about leadership, but it's not the right kind of leadership, right? Leadership can also be disguised as something that's not good for us. So those are my thoughts just on what you shared. And yeah, we love a little bit of controversy, and we're going to make the show a little more controversial, and that's a good thing because that helps people to start thinking differently and looking through different lenses. If you always see things the same way, they'll always be the same way. So we need to change that. I love change. I embrace that. I just, what am I going to need to change today? And be okay with that.
Absolutely.
Some people can't even change their hairdo, doody-doo, So yeah, over to you. Now, how are we going to get out of debt?
Okay. Yes. One of the things after COVID, as much as there was this government, subsidies and helping and all that easy money, unfortunately, the habits and the dependency, unfortunately, not having that productivity going back, and a lot of things did change. Right now, our credit card debts is the highest has ever been, at least in the United States.
Yep. Here too.
And unfortunately, there are many reasons from the business point of view, the ease of access to credit. So that has created unfortunate hindrance to our lives. And I know a lot of people might sugarcoat their situations, but underneath, there's a lot of pain. And just that, I think when it comes to debt, it's not even just the physical side, it's the mental, the owing someone or an organization, that's painful. So one of the workshops that we do, and one of the things we talk about, is about wealth and health. There's a big connection between the patterns, the connections, our goals in life, between the wealth, the financial side of things, and even more wealth could be a very diverse word, and our health. And what we have to do in both of them, we really have to have a clear definition. What is it? For us, what is health? For some people might be having a six pack and, you know, showing off their biceps. And for some people is the tranquility of life, having a peaceful life, being able to sleep and get up in the morning with no worries. For some people is it could have maybe a little physical pain, but there's a connection between, and we talk about the balance wheel, you know, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, besides your physical. So we have to take everything in consideration. So what you have to do when it comes to your health, you really have to have that clarity. How do you define that being healthy? You could have, you know, high blood pressure, for instance. You manage it, for instance, and what we could do but we could have a lot of other positive things which will actually help this. There's a lot of things is when we think about spirituality, I believe in power of prayers or meditation or manifestation. That mental, they have found that they do the healing in our physical body, for instance. So they are all interconnected. So it's not about popping up a pill and thinking that, oh, we are good. So there's a big connection. So the same thing happens in our finances. And one thing is, as human beings, a lot of times we avoid the pain. We don't like the pain. That's why we don't like the reality. So that what does that take us to? Denial. We just don't want to face it. We deny it because we want to avoid it. And the reason is we don't want to be accountable for it. So one of the things we have to really have a clear mind, except for instance, we have financial problem. And in this situation, so we have accept we have health problem. We do have physical or do blood tests. Well, we find out it's better to find out rather than closing our eyes and 20 years later they say, oh, I was surprised. I don't know I have this problem, right? Well, you know, God was sending you messages every time, you know, and you know, I've had those things. The idea is knowing those signals. I mean, I know, for instance, for 60 years almost, I played soccer. I have bad knees. I've broken bones everywhere. That's the price I've paid. But it's not anything internal in a way of it is pretty much known. My X-ray shows all the problems I have. So I manage it because I know. Now, what if it just close my, oh, I have this, what if it's cancer? What if this? Just constantly living in that fear, that's not helpful because now it affects your emotional and mental status. So the same thing when it comes to your finances. Just be brave, sit down. Rule number one, in order to reduce your debt or completely get rid of your debt, sit down and list them. There's nothing like actual physical writing down things. What I do, for instance, I always think, well, God forbid, if something happened to me, my children, will they know? My partner, will they know where I stand? And I have everything organized and everything is done. It's not this, unfortunately, this negative thoughts. It's the reality. I want to make life easier for them, but also for myself. So if you have debts, sit down, list them by who's the creditor. And when we talk about debt, what is a debt? Debt, you have to be clear. It could be a mortgage, which is our biggest one. It could be car loans. It could be, bless you,
Excuse me.
could be personal loans. The biggest one, a lot of people have the credit cards, or it
Yeah.
could be a personal loan, to a friend. You still have a loan. Now, we have to differentiate over many years, like long life. It's, you can't expect you give a gift to someone or somebody when they need it, you say, well, here, I want to help you. Well, that's a gift. You cannot expect and say, oh, you remember I gave you $1,000 or $10,000 gift, whether it was your wedding or when you needed to buy a house. Well, that was a gift. So get over it. It was a gift. Be thankful that you did it. I don't even remember. I'm sure you don't remember how many people you have helped at that moment. So it was not a contract. It was not expected. So in the times of needs, you cannot put the guilt on them. Remember when you needed that? I gave you $1,000. Now, if they came out to you and they said, Ramin, Laurie, I need your help. Can you? And I will pay it back in 5 years, in 1 year. Well, that's a loan. It's a debt. But if you volunteered and helped them, okay, well, that's a gift. And that's done. And no expectation, because that's what gift is, by the way. No
Hmm.
expectation. So list your debts. And the way you do it, you put down who's the creditor. Again, assume that it's your 8-year-old and 10-year-old. I hope you never see, but just think about that they have no clue and that you want to make sure it's clear. And then, of course, we want to put the amounts as we updated. In my situation, I updated every month. If I have a credit card, I put the balance in there and put down what interest rates they are. And these interest rates, the balance now, it was what amount it was originally, now how much is the balance, what are the due dates, when is it going to mature, is this a 3-year loan, is this a 5-year, the credit card. My hope is you pay it off so you don't have to, especially in this environment, is the interest rates are pretty high. It's amazing. It's like a loan shark. We used to watch the movies and say, holy cow, are they charging this much money? Well, the banks are doing that right now, and it's legal. So that's what they're doing. So you have to balance things. So make sure you list them. So once you listed them, what you have to look at is, okay, I have all these debts, I have the credit cards, but I'm going to make a, a pragmatic but proactive decision that I'm going to get rid of it. So most of the people, they pay the minimum dues, or they pay, let's say they have 5 different debts, they pay them whatever it's needed. Well, one of the simplest things is you can look at it as a big picture and look at, well, this is the one with the highest rates. So I'm going to focus on this, the highest rate, let's say nowadays like 30%. And I'm going to pay the other ones the minimum, whatever, because I'm balancing act. I pay extra on this, so I want to get rid of this. Imagine 30% in your pocket after a year. That's 30% extra income. So you can do that. It could be, we call it avalanche, or a big snowball. Get rid of that, melt that. The other thing is, we as human beings, we like to have small rewards, small wins that makes us feel good. Sometimes when we do tasks or we want to write something, we start with one word, one sentence, we start with one page. So we enjoy that. So the other strategy you could use is go with the smallest account and just pay that off and have that zero balance. And that's a feel good way of getting rid of debt. So you say, oh God, thank God, and I'm not going to use this credit cards. I just paid it off. Of course, when you have credit cards, the best way is just pay off the balance at the end of the month, because there won't be any interest rates. They allow you 28 to 31 days to pay your whatever you purchase, which a lot of times you get points. A lot of people use their credit cards because they get these points, sometimes up to 5%. Well, that's a smart way. Rather than using your cash, let's use that and pay off in 28 days later. So, and you earn points and you don't have interest. But these are the two major ways of paying off, especially with credit cards, that it will allow you to feel you are in control. Because control is one of those things that gives us power in a positive way, I mean. So when we are in control of our situation, we know we can accomplish things. A lot of times it's the helplessness. It's just these bills are coming and we don't know where to start. And that's why you see a lot of people pile up of envelopes just sitting there because they don't want to open. And that's the avoidance and denial. So the other thing is, generally, it goes back to that fear of writing things down, is actual budgeting. The companies have to do that, especially if they have shareholders. Our grandparents used to do that. There was a checkbook, Every day they will put that, whatever they did, they put that entry. They know how much money is coming in, how much is going out. Now with so many programs out there, my God, if you're like younger people, you can just go on the laptop on your app. You can manage it. It's just again that fear of facing what we have to face, or what there is, the monster. We avoid that. Have a budget. Write it down. Where is money coming? Where is it going? It's amazing when you map it out. You see, oh my God, did I need to do this? Did I need to do that? What kind of habits do I have? Do I have to go to Starbucks every day or every other day and pay $7 for something that you can get at the whole coffee at home, or tea, you can make it yourself? So it's funny how silly it is, but visually when you see it, you really have that ah moment, and you said aha moment, I mean. So that's another way of really clarity. Obviously one of the easiest way would be, well, now that you know your debt, you should have more income. You say, okay, this is my budget. Well, I'm not making it. Well, maybe I should do, ask for a salary increase. Maybe I should do extra, extra time, overtime. Maybe you should get a second job or do a side job. Um, if you're really good at trading, take a course and do the trading. Maybe make sure you know what you're doing. Have it trading. So, um, not the betting side. Don't get gambling, but that extra income as far as getting more income. The opposite of that is, my God, you look at less spending. Do I have to buy that thing today? Let's make it good habits. And we've talked about, our spending habits, how to money, that 124 hour, 48 hour over 3 day. When you have to make a large purchase, have that little timeout. See if it's necessary, if it's important to have this, whatever you're buying, this car. Do you want to have a brand new car and be hooked for $700-800 a month debt for 5 years? Or can I buy a used car and pay $200 or $300 and I budget, or pay a lump sum? So that less spending is, maybe it's of course we should, but it's a lot easier said than done. But put it, that's again in the writing. Another simple thing is we don't want to think about, and sometimes you get a discount, is that auto pay. Just put it on auto pay. You don't have to see it. The money comes out and just set up a whatever amount you want, and automatically the bank will take it, or the credit card or the loans. I would really encourage that because it gives you discipline. Because when you don't have the discipline, and now you're juggling things. Do I do this? Do I do that? Unless you have made a decision to put the bigger amount towards a credit card or a loan, you can always add more. So let them do auto pay, and then next day or two, you just pay more towards that. It's such a good feeling. We used to advise that, like with mortgages, there were times that they were bi-weekly. And by bi-weekly, you were cutting years of your, and it didn't even feel like it, because sometimes people are, uh, getting their paychecks every 2 weeks. They were getting it bi-weekly. Automatically, they just paid them, and instead of paying 1,000 a month, they would pay $1,200 a month. Or if they did 1,000, it would be bi-weekly. It's 1,000, but every year they're adding one extra month. And instead of like 15-year mortgage, now you're 13 years it was paid off. So that's why you want to do this auto pay and add extra if you can, and that will solve the problem. The other part is, there are times in our during the year, maybe we get a tax return. We get these windfalls. Somebody gives us a gift. Um, Something happens, we get a bonus. Now, what we could do, of course, we feel good immediately. We think about the gift we're going to buy ourselves, or we're going to pay for somebody else. We're going to go out to big dinner. Let's celebrate. Well, let's be a little realistic. Is that pain more than pleasure? So we like to do the pleasure, but the pain's still there. So why don't we reduce that pain by using that money to pay off some of our debts? The other part would be my thing. Well, why don't we invest that money and use that investments to pay off the debt in the future? Now, here you have to again do the balancing. Would that interest rate, will you our investments will produce after taxes equal amount of that interest that we are paying? Am I going to make 40% on my investments to pay off that 30%? Majority of time, it's much better to pay off that debt if it's a high rate. Now, a lot of times your mortgage is, you know, 7%, 6%. You get tax deductions, and whatever, depending on if you have investment property or thing. Sometimes it's better to what you do than invest because you think you can make 8%, 9%. So when you look at the spread, look at the difference, yeah, I can invest it, make more money, I can always pay off the debt. But it's all about discipline. It's easier said than done. You will make that investments and never pay off your debt. So there goes, wait a minute, that was not the plan. So the bottom line is when you get some windfalls or gifts, just look at where the interest rate is. I doubt if anyone can make consistently over 30, 40% after taxes to equal that interest on debt. So pay off that debt is almost like investments because you put that money back in your pocket. If you're not making the credit card company rich, you're making yourself rich. Some of the things that of course, you receive a lot of organization out there, but also you can do it yourself. It's a consolidation. So I have all these credit cards. Let's say your credit score is good. That's another class we can talk about how we can improve our credit. How about the first time people? It doesn't have to be young people. Talking about immigrants, they come to this country, they have $10 million in their bank account, but they can't get a mortgage because they don't have a credit. So how we can help to build a credit. So that would be another class we could do. But consolidation is good. If I have 3 credit cards. If I go get a personal loan, and first of all, it will be one payment, fixed income, and a lot of times the interest rate on the personal loan is much lower than the credit cards. As long as I promise myself to build a good habits toward the credit cards, that I'm not gonna again accumulate and have this credit card build up. If I use a credit card, it will be paid off immediately. So that personal loan gives you a discipline, a guidance, and you can actually, again, pay it off a lot faster because now you know exactly how much it is, and usually the payments are less. You can also use like home equity loan if you need to. At least, again, the rates are much lower. Just look at the rates, the terms, read those, make sure their fees, how much fees, especially with the home equity loan, if it's going to add up, then you got to really calculate these. So again, you really have to put your mathematical hat on, which is the simple math, and just do it. As Nike says, just do it. See in picture where you stand. And the other thing is, my God, everybody has a smartphone. We all have computers. There's so many apps out there. There's online free resources. So take advantage of that. Having said that, is the bottom line, and this is what we are doing right now, is education. We spend times, we can watch a movie because we need it after a long day. We come home, we want to sit down and watch a movie and basically spend 2 or 3 hours. But sometimes we are not willing to invest in ourselves and spend 1 hour to learn about something. But we have to make sure what we are learning is a consistent and fundamental education rather than tidbits. I watch this YouTube, then I watch this TikTok, and then Instagram, Facebook. I accumulate a lot of information, knowledge, but that doesn't make me a very knowledgeable person. I just have tons of information. Knowledge is organized information. That means there's a pattern to that information, not scattered data from everywhere, which actually it confuses people more than when they started. So sometimes ignorance is a bliss in some ways because I'm not bombarded with all these information. But if you're going to have education, make sure it's a solid education with a foundation. And it reminds me, last week we talked about your workshop, for instance, about self-worth and self-value. As we mentioned, yes, we can take some of these, I mean, we can read some of these books, we can go to some of these like 2-day seminars with thousands of people, but they just touch the surface of things. We need the depth. We need to understand things fundamentally to have a lasting effect. And in order to do that, first of all, we have to have the will. We have to make that proactive decision to make that change or to start willing to learn. So it's a lot of times if the Facebook information or these YouTube is more of a feel good things. Oh, I know about this, so we can't wait to tell somebody else. The idea was not making a difference in ourselves. The idea was I'm gonna be the messenger, not the doer. When you have a real education, when you have in-depth understanding of yourself, that's real education. That's when you start having a lasting effect. And I've said it before, education, educe, is from within. So education comes from inside, not outside. So a lot of information we get is just bombarded. So we're just getting these superficial information and we think we know it all, but we don't really. So anyway, that's my little tidbit for, hopefully that was helpful, at least make hopefully our audience thinking and taking some actions, even if it's a small action. And again, getting out of, if we are avoiding things, let's stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I think what you're talking about is, and along the same lines as myself, what's the point of information if you're not going to do anything with it?
exactly.
It's just occupying space in your head. Application and implementation are the most important aspects of any education. So, how much do we actually remember from kindergarten to grade 12? How many times have we applied it other than when it comes to reading, writing, and arithmetic? Right? And now the quality of the final product is so mishmash. We have kids coming out of high school in Canada who don't even know how to string a sentence together,
Mhm.
right? They don't know how to have a signature because they've gone back to printing instead of cursive writing. They've removed cursive writing from the system.
Mhm.
So, what kind of a signature are you going to have? And at one time, when I was struggling with debt, I put all my credit cards in an ice cream container full of water and put it in the freezer. And if I was going to use that credit card, I had to wait, and this was before microwaves. I had to wait for it to thaw out. And by the time it thawed out, I forgot what I was going to buy anyway. Right? So I actually did that. That was a suggestion from a financial advisor. If your credit cards are out of control, then, you can do that. But the when you were talking about information, tidbits from here and there and there and there, the the industry that really bombarded us first and foremost was the weight loss industry.
Mhm.
Try this diet, try that diet, suck lemons, do what. And when you think about that, there's no plan. It's just random info, like you just said. And there's so much of that too around finance as well.
Yeah.
But how many years have you been in the financial business? I'll do a little interview here to back up what you just shared about solid mentors.
Yeah,
How many years?
I'm finishing my 39th year. Will
Okay.
be 40 years,
All
3
right.
months, 4 months.
So you have probably forgotten more, or how do I want to say that? There's a saying around that. Well, I'll do it this way. So what I know about finance, I could put in a thimble compared to what you know. So that's why you are the financial mentor and guru here. I've been in business for 40 years, 1984 till now, whatever that is. And so I know how to be an entrepreneur. I know how to ride the waves. I know how to, do the dip-diddy-doos, because COVID wasn't the only setback that we ever had. So if you want to have a business, wouldn't you want to be working with somebody who already had a business for 40 years? Right? So
Right.
we have education to cover all of that. And the reason that Dr. Ramin and I have partnered up in a few aspects and some of our projects is because if you add your years and my years together, we have 80 years of business experience to share and over 100 years of life experience to share. So don't be shy. There's resources there. We have a comment, but I'm just doing them in my little soapbox, right now. So those are some of the thoughts that came up for me. I took some notes. I love the idea of making the list, because when you write something down, and research has shown, so even if at the top of your list, before you list all your debts, to be paid off,
Mm-hmm.
a trigger at the top, to be paid off. And even if you want to put a time limit or not, because when we write something down, it increases the chances of it happening by 85%. Here's a good number. When you go to do something, and I have journals and lists and books, and I know you do too, because this one here is almost finished. I just started this in May, and I record every day. Today I recorded your information. See, every day. Very powerful way to manage your life. And then I can go back and go, oh my goodness, I remember meeting. Oh yeah, I need to call that person. Right?
I agree. Yes.
So yeah, I love that. Kathy loved the idea of freezing the credit cards in the freezer. That's it. Well, I'd rather put a freeze on my own credit cards than somebody else freezing them for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, actually, when we do manage, the credit cards and how to get a good credit, that would be another,
Another
good,
day.
I think another good,
I
yes,
love that.
good
I
work.
love that. How to get
Yeah.
your credit score up,
Yeah.
especially for COVID. That money that was offered, I never touched it. I said I wouldn't touch that money with a 10-foot
Yeah.
pole,
Neither do I.
because they're going to come after it, and I didn't want to be part of that. I know for some people it put food on their table, and for that we're grateful.
Right.
But COVID has really done a number on people financially, and some people are going to recover and some people are not.
Yeah.
So this is really important information that we're sharing. And speaking of sharing, if you know other people who could benefit from the information, please share the show. Share. All right, over to you. We've got about 8 minutes left here. So anything else you want to mention that has come up for you with regards to what we're talking about today?
Oh, well, it's kind of a side note. We have our good friend Sylvia. She's very supportive of our program and uh, what we do. And she had a question about, right about a month before the elections, and the Canadian dollar has been just diving. So, what is going on? What is happening to Canada? And what it is, it's more than Canadian dollar reaction. It's about United States dollar. The US dollar has been appreciating tremendously since uh, from third week of September, fourth week of September. It was right after the big rate cut, but the bonds or the treasuries in the United States, the actual markets, the rates started going up. So the dollar has been getting really strong, and it's like a parabolic move. And the reason is a couple of things. Number one, the rates actually have been going up. So as we have mentioned before, is there's billions and billions of money which is invested every day. They go look for the best opportunity. And if US is going to pay me more interest than Canadian interest rate, or the European interest rate, or the UK interest rate, my money is going to go to United States. So how does it go? It moves. So here I have to sell my Canadian dollar and buy US dollar if I want to put money in there and earn interest. So it's all about supply and demand. So when you say sell Canadian dollar, you're selling. So the price generally goes down. When you're buying something, when there's a pressure, the price goes up. So now we've got all this pressure for around the globe, especially the, Canada has been reducing their rates. Relatively, we call it interest rate parity. Relatively, Canadian interest rate is less than United States. Europe is the same picture, the same way. So the euro is at like almost 105. 105 is 106. It might be 1 to 1. About 10 years ago, euro was 142. Before that was about over 150. So because of that, that's one reason, and that's the reason Canadian dollar has gone down. And the second thing is, I mentioned before, the markets were expecting for Trump to be elected. So there is these concerns about the tariffs. There's the concerns about taxes. So the money will come back to US because of tariffs, the manufacturing, the companies might have to come back, especially he wants to offer tax cuts. And if you have a reduced, that corporation have lower taxes, they don't have to go, let's say, to Ireland and go overseas to get tax benefits. So the money that they're producing will be in dollar. So they're bringing their production to dollar, and basically that increases the demand for dollar and the value of the dollar. So that's the two main reasons that the dollar has been strong and other um, currencies have been down. I mean, we talked about Mexican peso last week. It's like Mexican peso, there's a problem, obviously, because of the dollar's strength, but also the tariffs, also because of the immigrants coming back. So there's a lot of those happening. But the bottom line is the dollar is much stronger than other currencies. And Canada is our biggest partner, when you think about partnership. So it affects our debt, but also Canada has their own immigration regulations now they're putting into effect. And the tariffs, we'll see what happens. What happens with Keystone pipelines. There could be a give and take. So when, Trump himself doesn't know about what's going to be. He just came with that idea. He says 100, 200, could be 20. It could be very selective. So we'll see. This is going to be a work in progress. So it's not an absolute thing, but the strength of dollar right now is something that we have to watch. We need a little pause and a little digestion, but it's been pretty strong. So
Mhm.
it's a good time going skiing in southern France, or skiing somewhere in Austria or something using euros. So anyway, I hope
Mhm.
that was helpful. Thank you, Sylvia, for your
Mhm.
comments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, well, our time is nearly up. Just like to mention, though, tonight we have our Ramin and I co-host 100 workshops in finance. Imagine. So tonight's my turn, and my topic is what is financial independence?
Hmm.
And we do welcome guests. So if anybody's watching or viewing and would like an invite for our workshop, we have clients who have paid, of course, to come, but occasionally we invite guests for you to have a sample of what we're doing. So if that's something you'd like to do, just email me and I'll make sure that you get the link. And I shall put my email up here because we always have fun in our classes.
Mhm.
And so I facilitate on Tuesday night, and Ramin facilitates on Thursday night. So I do sort of what we call the soft side, the skills, the belief systems, all that. And then he does the real deal on Thursday nights. And so we're learning lots about the markets and what to look for and strategies. And it's been very, very valuable. So you can contact me at the Laurie Davis Show at gmail.com. I'm not finding it on my list here, but oh well, there you go. All righty. So anything else before we go, Ramin? Just wanted to put a plug in for our workshop tonight that we're doing on Zoom. And looking forward to our show tomorrow morning. Ramin and I are back at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays. We did a little shifting of our show times and our topics because we want to ramp things up. And so tomorrow is our VIP show, Voices of and for Indigenous People. So we're going to do our show tomorrow morning, our 9 o'clock. And the press box, which normally is on Tuesdays, has been moved to 9 o'clock Thursday morning. So my co-host, or I'm the co-host, and the host of that show, of course, is Doug Smith. So that's our lineup of shows for this week. Anything else? Or is
No,
it just
awesome. You just mentioned, that's what I was going to ask you.
here we go.
For the week.
Here we go. If you want to be a guest at one of our finance workshops, either Tuesday or Thursday night, please let me know and I'll make sure you get the link. All righty. Bye for now then.
Yes, the quickest hour in the week.
I know, of the week, is it not, right?